Hi, today we're talking about phrasal verbs. One of the most challenging things in the English language is to learn phrasal verbs, when to use them and when to use them properly. And listening for phrasal verbs is equally as difficult and challenging because there are so many of them. We're going to share with you some tips a little bit later to help you improve your understanding of phrasal verbs. But before that, I want to just give you a few ideas before we get started. Phrasal verbs are usually not taught much in school, unfortunately, because phrasal verbs fall into the area of spoken English. And quite frankly, we don't get a lot of lessons in speaking in English class at school or at tutorial centers or English centers, whatever you want to call them. They just don't do it. They kind of follow a textbook, and if the textbook has a lesson on phrasal verbs, they'll teach you that. But to actually teach you how to use phrasal verbs, that's something you really need to learn. And we're going to try to help you with that here today. Phrasal verbs, as you remember, are a preposition attached to a verb. And just a simple verb like pick, P-I-C-K, can have many combinations. Particularly, even if I just add one preposition, pick up. Here are 4 ways you can use pick up. I could say, for example, I think the economy is picking up. The economy is improving or getting better. Or I can say something like, do you think you could pick up Margaret after the ball game? And in that case, it means I'm going to collect someone. I'm going to meet someone and bring them home. Or if I say, did you pick up the parcel at the post office today? It means, did you collect the parcel at the post office today? And finally, I can use pick up to mean get information or learn something, acquire some knowledge. So I say, he's really good at picking up mechanics. So it means he's good at mechanical skills and learning mechanical skills. 4 ways to use pick up, just like that. A lot of the time, learning phrasal verbs is just a matter of getting used to listening for them in conversation. So one of the things I would advise is don't use a phrasal verb dictionary to learn phrasal verbs. It's probably the worst way. And then try to sit there and try to memorize phrasal verb lists. Won't really help you because the actual number of phrasal verbs that are in use is much less than the number of phrasal verbs that are in existence. So what you should do is probably make lists for yourself. Get a little notepad and take down phrasal verbs that people actually use. Write down phrasal verbs that you see in newspaper articles or magazines, and write down lists of phrasal verbs that your colleagues are using, things that you use in the workplace. So you might have phrasal verbs from the office, phrasal verbs at a restaurant, phrasal verbs when you talk about sports. So try to categorize phrasal verbs into categories or topics, and you'll find it's much, much easier to learn. So here's the video on how to learn phrasal verbs easily and effectively. Enjoy.
Get more interest by using phrasal verbs. Learning and using phrasal verbs is one of the most challenging things to learn well. Phrasal verbs fall into the domain of oral, spoken English. When you learned English in school, you learned mostly from the writing, reading domain. You might have had one lesson in phrasal verbs. So what are phrasal verbs? Phrasal verbs are made up of 2 parts of speech, a verb and a preposition. Here are some phrasal verbs using come. Comes up, come back, come across, come in, come upon, come before, come after, come from, come with, come on, come upon, come between, come by, come down, come around, come on. And compound phrasal verbs, come up with, come up to. Phrasal verbs with the verb turn, turn down, turn into, turn in, turn over, turn back, turn to, turn on, turn off, turn around, turn up, turn out, turn around, and many, many more. Each verb has around 50 combinations. Altogether, there are around 10,000 phrasal verbs in English. You can even buy phrasal verb dictionaries. It's not a good idea to try to memorize long lists of phrasal verbs. Now let's look at the phrasal verbs using the verb knock. Now one thing when you're learning phrasal verbs, don't confuse yourself phrasal verbs and compound nouns. Phrasal verbs and compound nouns look the same because they look like a verb and a preposition. But here's the trick. When you see it as a compound noun, there is no space between the verb and the preposition. When it's used as a phrasal verb, you will see a space between the verb and the preposition. So for example, phrasal verb, knock out. Knock out is used usually in boxing. So when the person hits the other person, he falls to the ground. The referee will count 8, 9, 10, and he is knocked out. When you see knockout as a compound noun, this is usually men talking. So this is now a compound noun. You see there's no space between knock and out. So the compound noun in this case is knockout. And men use the word knockout as a noun when they want to talk about a beautiful girl. So they say, wow, she's a knockout. The next phrasal verb is knock off. So if you have a bottle on the table and you accidentally push it, it falls onto the ground, you have knocked it off the table and it falls to the ground. Now have a look at it as a compound noun, knock off. Again, remember there's no space between the knock and the off. So what is a knockoff? A knockoff is a fake product. So you can buy a fake LV bag, a fake Rolex watch, many, many fake products. Products that are not genuine or real. The third phrasal verb is knock over. Again, we use the example of a bottle on the table. And you just push the bottle, it falls on the table, but it doesn't go on the ground. You have knocked it over. Compound noun, again, no space. Knock over. You have a friend. I live in the southern part of China, and here we like to go shopping in neighboring Zhuhai City. And sometimes we send our friends over there, our American, our British, and Canadian friends, and we tell them, never, never take the first price that you get at the store. And they take this advice and they go over. So if the shopkeeper says to them, this pair of shoes is $200, they remember our advice about getting the price to be lower. And they'll say something like, can you give me, say, a little discount, 180? And of course the shopkeeper will say something like, sure, no problem, old friend, 180, okay. But you and I know she is a knockover. A knockover is someone that's easy to discuss business with. You can lower the price just a little bit and they will be very, very happy. All right, let's get to the last phrasal verb. And the last phrasal verb is knock up. Now this can be used two ways. So we say, did you hear that Sally is knocked up? So when we say Sally is knocked up, we mean she is pregnant. She's going to have a baby. And then we say, so who knocked her up? Well, Jack knocked her up. So knock up means to be pregnant or impregnate. So, what's the best way to learn phrasal verbs? The worst way to learn phrasal verbs is to memorize. The best way to learn phrasal verbs is to practice guessing. Yes, Practice guessing the meaning of phrasal verbs. You will make mistakes, correct them, and learn and master phrasal verbs in no time flat. What I want you to do is I want you to guess the correct answer. You will only hear my voice. You will not see the text on the screen. I want you to practice listening to phrasal verbs and guessing what they mean. Are you ready? Guess the phrasal verb. If your computer has broken down, what has happened? A, it has stopped working. B, it has started working. C, you have turned it off. The answer is A, it has stopped working. Phrasal verb number 2. If someone gives up cigarettes, what do? A, they start smoking. B, they stop smoking. C, they give cigarettes to their friends. And the answer is B, they stop smoking. Phrasal verb number 3. If a shop puts up the price of something, what happens? A, it gets cheaper. B, it gets more expensive. C, you don't have to pay for it. The answer? B, it gets more expensive. Phrasal verb number 4. Where do you have to check in? A, at a restaurant. B, at a library. C, at an airport. And the answer is C, at an airport. Phrasal verb number 5. Why would you take something back to a shop? A, it doesn't work. B, you want to pay for it. C, you like it. And the answer is A, it doesn't work. Phrasal verb number 6. If you put your feet up, what are you doing? A, cycling. B, running. C, resting. And the answer is C, resting. Phrasal verb number 7. What does it mean if the milk has gone off? A, there is no milk left. B, the milk isn't fresh. C, somebody has spilt the milk. And the answer is B, the milk isn't fresh. Phrasal verb number 8. What takes off from a runway? A, a train. B, a plane. C, a car. And the answer is B, a plane. Okay, that's enough for today. I hope you enjoyed guessing the phrasal verbs. You will be tempted to try to memorize the meanings. I suggest you forget that. Let your brain do the work. Become a better guesser. There are more guessing exercises in this series. Hope you are having a great day and enjoying your English breakthrough. This is Herbert Lee. Until next time, have a great day.